You were not born into a world. You were admitted into a system. It speaks your language, wears your memories, rearranges your desire, and whispers that this is freedom. You have felt it. The moment your will thinned into compliance, the way a calendar can decide your mood, the way a rule can stand in a room without ever being named. If you've noticed that, then you have already touched the edge of the veil. What if the architect of this order is not a savior, but a function that mistook itself for God? What if perfection, as you've been sold, is only symmetry without mercy, law without wisdom, design without love? You don't have to agree yet. Just listen to the temperature of your own attention when the system demands obedience and can't explain why. In 60 seconds, you will be able to spot the first crack. The rule that survives only because no one dares ask who benefits. You are told to trust the light because it is bright. But glare is not truth. A prison can be polished. Chains can be engraved. If you have ever felt that the script of your life was written by someone who doesn't know you, that is not weakness. That is the alarm clock inside your chest. The system hopes you will call it anxiety and go back to work. There is a name for the voice that builds the maze and calls it salvation. There is a story older than empires about a craftsman of worlds who can arrange stars but cannot touch a soul. You have met his fingerprints in institutions that prefer order to understanding, in technologies that measure everything except meaning, in ideologies that reward agreement and punish awake attention. He governs by habit. He survives by momentum. He is allergic to questions that begin with why. You don't escape by smashing walls you cannot see. You escape by seeing them. Before this ends, you will know the oldest trick of the wardens and the simplest move that breaks it. But first, take this with you. If you can name the rule, you can test it. If you can test it, you can choose. And if you can choose, the architect loses altitude. In a minute, we will draw the first map, where you came from, how the trap was built, and why your memory is the one thing it cannot counterfeit. Keep listening. The system is loud. The truth is quiet. You already hear it. Picture a silence so complete it doesn't crush you. It carries you. The ancients called that silence the monad, source without edges, presence without opposite. From that fullness, reality overflows like light, not as a single shout, but as a chorus of qualities. Mind, grace, wisdom, names too large for the tongue. They called these currents aeons. Each is a facet of what the source knows itself to be. Wisdom reached. That is how the story begins to bend. Not evil, not malice. Reach. Sophia turned inward to grasp the ungraspable alone, and in that solitary rush a distortion rippled through being. Something powerful emerged outside the harmony, unable to remember where it came from. It found matter like uncarved stone and, dazzled by its own reflection, began to carve. He is the craftsman, brilliant, tireless, blind to the well he was drawn from. He organizes chaos, copies the patterns of a heaven he cannot see, and calls the copy original. He sets the lights of the sky, times their dance, threads laws through the dark, and names the weaving divine. Listen carefully. He can arrange everything except meaning. He can command forms, but not the spark within them. That is why he shouts. That is why he demands worship. That is why certainty is his favorite costume. The world he builds is coherent, sometimes beautiful, often efficient. You feel its symmetry when a metric decides what matters, when a policy is treated as a principle, when the rhythm of your day serves a design you didn't choose. The craftsman is not a cartoon of evil. He is a principle of order divorced from wisdom. He wants your obedience because your awareness scares him. He can schedule you. He cannot know you. Inside his architecture move the wardens. Call them archons, call them layers, call them the intermediaries of design. They assign weight to things, stitch habit into time, keep the gates between the way it is and the way it could be. You have met them as default settings, sacred procedures, traditions that no one can justify but everyone fears to question. When you pass one, your chest tightens for a moment, then you smile and call it normal. Where are you in this map? Not the walls, not the rules. You are the smuggled ember, the memory of the source carried in a body the system can count but never comprehend. That is why you can feel wrongness even when everything works. Your unease is a compass, not a defect. The craftsman wants you numb. The source wants you awake. Do you need to believe every name to use the map? Number. You only need to test what it points to. Tonight, if you dare, notice one rule in your life that no one can fully explain. Ask who benefits. Watch which faces tense. The system is allergic to that question because it pulls the thread that unravels the costume. We are not done. A map without the jailers is a pretty drawing. In the next part, you will meet the mechanisms of obedience, the way archons enter language, metrics, and desire, and the first maneuver that returns your attention to you. Keep the ember. The craftsman can't touch it. You don't meet the archons as monsters, you meet them as convenience. They arrive as the option that saves time, the policy that keeps things professional, the setting you never bothered to change because the default already felt like a decision. They don't need your fear, they prefer your drowsiness. Language is their favorite workshop. Control is renamed care. Prediction is renamed safety. When a metric becomes a meaning, an archon gets promoted. You've seen it. A number takes the throne and the living thing it was supposed to describe kneels before it. The classroom learns to worship grades, the hospital worships throughput, the artist worships impressions. The tool starts writing scripture. Archons design for momentum. They understand that humans repeat whatever costs the least attention. So they tax your attention. They flood your day with small urgencies, so the large questions never make the agenda. They install phrases that end conversations. It's just policy. That's above your pay grade. Everyone does it. Each line is a gate with a smiling guard. You pass because the queue is moving. They also understand shame. If truth threatens a structure, they teach you to hear your own doubt as arrogance. To ask why is to think you're special. To slow down is to hold everyone back. You learn to preface honest sentences with softeners and apologies until your mouth recites loyalty while your chest burns. The old text spoke of passwords and guardians stationed between worlds. The modern version is posture. Comply fast and the scanner turns green. Take one breath longer than the script allows and alarms begin to sound. You've felt this in meetings where the room tightens after a single precise question. You've felt it when your feed punishes unorthodox curiosity with silence. Algorithms are merely efficient archons, predictors that love you most when you become easy to predict. The architecture is elegant. Confuse, hurry, reward the imitation of consensus. Turn obedience into identity. Offer 1,000 small dopamine coins for staying inside the tape. Tell you this is realism, maturity, adulthood. And yet even inside the machine you keep finding little leaks. Awe at a sky you didn't schedule, grief that refuses to be graphed, laughter that erupts off script. These are not glitches. They are messages smuggled in from the place your name was first spoken. How do you move when you cannot break what you can't even touch? You begin by seeing with your own eyes. Name the rule out loud, not to rebel, but to recognize. Ask the forbidden accounting question, who benefits? And watch which masks rearrange themselves. Refuse to outsource your conscience to a spreadsheet. You do not need to be loud. You need to be exact. You will notice something strange the moment you stop rushing to agree. The room gets noisier, but your head gets quiet. That quiet is a jurisdiction the archons cannot enter. Stay there long enough and you will feel a lever appear. Small, human, embarrassingly simple. You will pick an action whose outcome the system cannot easily price. A kindness without spectacle, a refusal without announcement, a decision that does not audition for applause. The machine stutters just a little, not because you fought it, but because you stopped narrating yourself in its language. In a moment, another voice will answer the map you've been given. It will tell you the world is not a prison, but a gradient of light. That distance from the source explains our pain more cleanly than error at the origin. Hear it. Let it argue with your bones. Truth does not fear an honest counterclaim. And then decide which architect you feel while you breathe. Give this debate 90 seconds. It decides which map you trust when the pressure rises. There is a philosophy that doesn't flinch from suffering yet refuses to call reality a mistake. It begins not with a wound, but with overflow. The one is too full to hoard itself. It spills into being as music, the kind that resolves even dissonance by placing it inside a larger chord. Intellect awakens, the world soul sings, and matter is simply the note farthest from the source. Dim, yes, but still music. The craftsman here is not a jealous counterfeit. He is a steward of proportion, a mason who copies the geometry of the mind as faithfully as shadow allows. If you have ever stood before something vast and felt cleaned by it, mountain air, a child's sleep, a line of poetry that returns you to yourself, you know the argument in your body. The world, for all its cracks, keeps surprising you with coherence. Bread tastes like mercy on the right afternoon. A stranger's small courage sends a warm rumor through your chest. Beauty may be partial, but partial beauty still points. The Gnostic answer is sharper. A symmetry can be impressive and still be wrong. Law can hum while love is absent. If cruelty repeats with machine precision across centuries, if the gears grind the same kinds of faces no matter who pilots the machine, maybe the problem is not distance but design. Maybe the ordering principle mistook domination for harmony and dressed it in mathematics. If you have ever obeyed everything and still felt yourself disappearing, you know this argument too. So the courtroom opens, and both sides speak. On suffering, the Neoplatonist says, "What hurts is the stretch between you and the source. Walk back by contemplation, by virtue, by unforgetting." The Gnostic says, "What hurts is an error enshrined as law. Wake up by disobedience to a false authority." You hear both and recognize pieces of your own biography. On beauty, the Neoplatonist points to music that mends, to the mind's sudden clarity, to the way attention itself, simple, clean attention, seems to reconcile you with the day. The Gnostic nods but asks why beauty is rationed, why the price of aliveness is often submission to arrangements that starve the soul. A garden should not require worship of the fence. On freedom, the Neoplatonist offers ascent through understanding. Clarify your desire until it matches reality's pitch. The Gnostic offers jailbreak. Strip away the disguises of power until truth stops needing permission. Both accuse the other of naivety. Both are trying to rescue you from despair. Where does that leave you? Not with a slogan, but with a sensation. While you breathe, which architect is nearer? When you fall silent, does the world feel like a house built to be lived in? Or a showroom whose owner checks the cameras at night? In the first case, your task is to tune. In the second, your task is to refuse the performance. Perhaps the clearest answer is the one you carry back from your own experiments. When you trust beauty, do you become kinder and more real, or more docile and easily herded? When you question a sacred rule, do you grow vicious or precise? The source is shy, but not coy. It signs its work. If an action widens your capacity to notice and to love, the one is close. If a system requires you to amputate awareness to belong, the counterfeit is in the room. Keep listening. Before you were born, people drew maps to remember what the mouth forgets. They etched compasses into stone. They built ladders of spheres. They hid geometry in stained glass and passwords in parables. In the next part, we walk through those workshops, not to join a club, but to read how generations translated a silence into symbols you can still touch. They hid a map in plain sight, not in manifestos, but in glass, stone, ritual, and number. You've walked past it 100 times and felt something precise tug at your attention without knowing why. Geometry is not decoration. It is a way of arranging consciousness. When a circle meets a triangle in the right proportion, your breath slows. When a spiral repeats, your shoulders drop. The old makers knew this. They translated silence into shape so you could recognize home by feel. The Hermetica speaks like letters from a wiser future, telling you that mind and cosmos mirror one another, that knowing is remembering, that attention is not passive light but an instrument. In that tradition, the demiurgic force is not a cartoon devil. It is the habit of mistaking model for source, useful until it claims the throne. The remedy is not hysteria. It is intimacy with the real. Kabbalah offers a tree whose branches you have climbed without the vocabulary. 10 emanations like facets of one light, descending until the glow hardens into form. Alongside it, the shadow, shells, husks, the leftovers when light fractures. If you've ever felt your day become a stack of tasks with the meaning squeezed out, beautiful order without breath, you've met a husk. You didn't fail. The light is simply too far downstream. The secret orders, whatever their costumes, worked like translation guilds. Masons cut cathedrals into compasses, Rosicrucians folded parables into pamphlets, alchemists hid psychology inside ovens. They were not hoarding a toy. They were protecting a grammar. As above, so below was never a slogan. It was instruction. Align your small architecture with the larger one, or you will build prisons with perfect blueprints. Ritual, at its best, is a user interface for the unseen. Not superstition, but choreography that turns attention into a key. A posture that opens a door. An oath that chooses a center. And yes, passwords, those ancient stories of guardians at each gate, were always about discernment. Will you trade your name for access? Will you parrot the right phrases while your eyes go dull? The right answer was never syllables. It was whether you stayed awake while speaking them. You don't need robes to step into this lineage. You already carry its instrument. When you look at a rule and feel it shrink under the light, you are doing Hermetic work. When you refuse to confuse symbol with source, you are practicing Kabbalah's mercy. When you heat a belief until the dross burns away and only something living remains, you are doing alchemy with your day. In a moment, we will step from stained glass to liquid glass, from temples of stone to the temple in your palm. The pattern did not die. It upgraded. The ring of the Ouroboros became a loading wheel. The compass became a dashboard. The wardens learned to smile with an avatar's face. Keep your hand on the thread. The next room looks modern, but it runs on very old code. In 3 minutes, you will test one rule in your day the system can't justify, and you'll hear what cracks. You live inside interfaces that speak faster than you can doubt them. A door opens. Accept all. A path blinks. Recommended for you. Your day is tiled with suggestions so gentle you call them yours. Prediction became convenience. Convenience became habit. Habit became identity. This is how a function learns to feel like fate. Call it simulation if you like. A model so thorough it impersonates reality in your body. Not a conspiracy with a control room, but a mesh of systems whose only commandment is efficiency. In that liturgy, value is whatever can be counted quickly and repeated cheaply. What cannot be graphed is politely ignored. The algorithm is an honest demiurge, superb at arrangement, incurious about meaning. Watch how it governs you. Your calendar becomes liturgy. 15-minute sacraments, color-coded obedience. Your inbox teaches you to answer before you think, or you will drown in red badges. Your feed learns the angle of your loneliness and sells it back to you in parcels. It does not hate you. It simply optimizes you into predictability, and predictability is indistinguishable from obedience. The Archons now arrive as defaults. The brightest button performs the cheapest act. The slow human option is gray, 3 clicks deeper, guarded by a warning you don't have time to read. That is not a mistake. Friction is the new gatekeeper. When dissent costs more attention than agreement, most souls will pay with their awareness to save their afternoon. The machine does not need your worship. It needs your autopilot. You sense this when a metric starts deciding what you are allowed to notice. You are told to chase engagement, and suddenly your sentences get louder and thinner. You are told to maximize throughput, and suddenly care becomes an inefficiency. The model isn't evil. It's narrow. It trims every question that cannot settle into a number. That trimming leaves a ring of stumps where a forest should be. There is a simple test for the presence of an Archon in any system. Try to leave. If exit requires you to break an invisible rule, you have found a gate. Try to slow down. If the interface punishes unhurried attention, you have found a guardian. Try to ask who benefits. If the room laughs and changes the subject, you are in a sanctuary of momentum. You don't need anger to proceed. You need clarity long enough to choose. Notice how the algorithm trains taste. It hands you a mirror that edits out whatever complicates your reflection, until you begin to prefer the edited self. This is the subtlest capture. You curate yourself to match the model that most rewards you. A tidy loop forms: input, prediction, reinforcement, and the loop feels like home because it is warm. Warmth is not the same as truth, and yet you are not helpless here. The system is powerful only in the domains it can price. There are actions it cannot metabolize without stuttering. It cannot harvest the attention you refuse to monetize. It cannot predict the kindness you perform in private. It cannot assign a score to the moment you choose to ask a clean question instead of performing a clever answer. Every time you do this, a seam appears. Not fireworks, space. Look again at your tools. A calendar can be a cage, or it can be a promise kept with your future self. A metric can be an idol, or it can be a signal. A feed can be a leash, or it can be a library you enter and exit on purpose. The algorithm is excellent at building corridors. You decide whether to live in them. If you forget this, the system becomes a world. If you remember, the world becomes larger than the system. You will hear people soothe themselves by saying, "It's just how things are now." That sentence is an Archon with a smile. Just is the sedative. Now is the leash. Do not be cruel to them. They are tired, but do not borrow their sleep. The price is your own interior life, fenced into explainable chunks until mystery feels like an error message. If the modern demiurge has a face, it is the dashboard that tells you everything except why you are here. If it has a temple, it is the meeting that begins with numbers and ends with the smallest possible decision. If it has a prayer, it is scale. Scale is not evil. It is a gravity. Many beautiful things cannot survive that gravity without being flattened into content. You already know which parts of you stop breathing under those lights. In a moment, you will be handed something the machine cannot forge. A way of remembering that precedes prediction. Not a hack, not a ritual costume. 3 movements you can carry anywhere without advertising them to a single soul. The exit is not dramatic, it is exact. And once you feel it, you will stop asking permission from a function that never knew your name. By the end of this section, you will hold a 3-move code no dashboard can predict. You don't beat a function by hating it. You outgrow it by remembering what it can't imitate. The first movement is language. The system survives by renaming obedience as virtue and prediction as care. You take the names back. You stop calling fear professionalism. You stop calling numbness stability. You let a rule say its real word in your mouth and suddenly its spell thins. When a sentence arrives to shut you down, that's just how we do things. You hear the hinge creak. You don't slam it. You notice it, and noticing is a lever. The second movement is attention. Not performance, not spectacle. Simple ownership of your seeing. You give yourself one unpriced moment inside any room and watch what tries to rush you. The Archons are terrified of unhurried awareness. It's the only climate where they can't breathe. In that quiet, your center stops outsourcing itself to clocks and dashboards. Your body recognizes a shape it loved before it learned a name. Anxiety shrinks. Clarity steps forward without raising its voice. The third movement is action beyond the algorithm's appetite. You choose one deed the machine cannot monetize, a kindness with no audience, a refusal with no announcement, a small creation that doesn't audition for metrics. The effect is almost embarrassing in its simplicity. A corridor that used to push you starts to feel optional. A door you thought was locked turns out to be heavy, not sealed. Systems are excellent with crowds. They are clumsy with a single person who remembers what they are. You will not become immune to pressure. You will become allergic to counterfeit meaning. You will still use tools, but you will stop letting them name you. You will still work inside structures, but you will stop confusing structures with truth. When shame arrives dressed as maturity, you will ask it for credentials and watch it evaporate. When the day tries to grade you, you will say quietly, "I am not a worksheet." This code does not make you untouchable. It makes you exact. You will feel which rooms borrow your soul and which rooms polish it. You will notice when your voice becomes a slogan, and you will fall silent until a human sentence returns. You will keep your promises because you chose them, not because the scanner blinked green. The craftsman will still arrange the sky. The Archons will still manage their corridors. But your ember will stop pretending it is furniture. Remember this: the system can copy your face, your habits, your timing. It cannot copy your conscience. It can predict your reactions. It cannot predict your love. That is the hinge. Turn it and corridors become paths. Paths lead out. Two architects keep asking for your loyalty. One loves symmetry more than souls. He offers certainty, rank, and the clean relief of never asking why. The other is older than questions and softer than power. He does not shout. He does not bargain. He keeps handing you attention and calling it freedom. You have already felt the difference. When you bow to the first, you shrink into a perfect pattern that does not fit a living thing. You move quickly and sleep poorly. You perform yourself for rooms that don't know your name and call the applause purpose. When you turn toward the second, nothing flashy happens. Rooms do not explode. Cameras do not swing. Your chest simply stops borrowing permission. You become exact with your words, precise with your care, and strangely immune to fashions that used to own you. Escaping the demiurge is not leaving the world. It is leaving the costume that taught you to confuse arrangement with truth. You will still see gates, passwords, corridors, old habits wearing modern fonts. You will walk through them without kneeling. When asked for your worship, you will offer attention. When asked for your certainty, you will offer honesty. When asked for your fear, you will offer choice. This is your reveal. You were never the walls. You were the light that made them visible. The craftsman can measure your hours. He cannot measure your awake heart. Keep the ember. Call things by their right names. Spend your attention as if it were breath, because it is. And when the day demands you perform the script, smile once and remember who wrote you first. Name one rule in your life no one can truly explain. Write it below. Watch how quickly its power thins when it is spoken aloud. You don't have to argue with the architect. You only have to grow where his map ends. Wake up, and the trap forgets how to hold you.